Clovers are one of the most important groups in the pea family. They belong in the genus Trifolium, which is a reference to the shamrock-like trifoliate shape of the leaves. There are 238 species, 99 of them European, but this one species, this is red clover. This one species transformed temperate agriculture, not just in Europe, but throughout the world. This was the key plant in the agricultural revolution which began in the 17th century, when its ability to enrich soils was first fully appreciated and applied to agriculture. And it owes this remarkable ability to a very special property of the pea family. On the roots there are small nodules which contain very special bacteria, rhizobium bacteria, which have the extraordinary ability to transform elemental nitrogen in the soil atmosphere to a compound form that plants can use. And this is the secret of its success, which makes it possible for members of the pea family to grow in habitats that other plants would find difficult and challenging. And it's also the secret of its enormous importance in agriculture. Red clover broke the fertility bottleneck that had strangled medieval agriculture. Its introduction to farming is estimated to have increased the total nitrogen in farm soils in Europe by 60%. The average wheat yield doubled to 20 bushels by the late 18th century, and there was an overall increase in food production on the traditional three-course wheat, oats, fallow rotation. In the late 19th century, red clover lost its preeminence in this regard to white clover, modern varieties of which are so efficient at nitrogen fixation that a 10% cover of white clover will produce 50 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per annum, enough to make a sward self-sustaining in nitrogen. And white clover, which is pollinated by honeybees, is the main ingredient in clover honey. It spreads by means of runners, so it can cover ground more quickly than red clover. The flowers are typical pea family flowers. So you have the flag petal at the top, you have two wing petals at the side, and the two lower petals are fused to form the keel, which encloses the stamens and the pistil. But here the inflorescence is a cluster of much smaller, upright individual flowers. And the bee will land on the cluster rather than on the individual flowers. And as it probes for nectar, only its front legs will come to rest on the two wing petals. And the pollen from the aperture at the tip of the keel will be extruded onto the underside of the head, not further back on the body, as is the case with, for example, bird's foot trefoil. The lower parts of the petals are drawn out into long claws that enclose a tube formed by the fused filaments of 9 of the 10 stamens, at the base of which the abundant nectar gathers. The upper 10th stamen remains free so as not to impede the probing proboscis of the bee. This tube is some 9 millimeters long, so that only bees have a tongue long enough to reach the abundant nectar at the base, though they will often bore a hole at the base to rob the nectar. The pressure of the bee's front legs disengages the knuckle at the base of each wing petal from its anchoring mortise in the keel, releasing the upward curved sheath of stamens and the pistil from their confinement in the keel, allowing them to spring up into contact with the visiting bee. However, stamens and pistil retract back inside the keel once that pressure is removed, and the process will be repeated when the next bumblebees arrive. Red clover is strictly a bumblebee flower. So when it was introduced to New Zealand agriculture, it failed to produce seed, so the bumblebees had to be imported as well. The flowers are exceptionally rich in nectar, rich enough in fact for the human palate to be able to detect its sweetness. At least it used to be the case until the introduction of artificial sweets dulled that sensitivity. And you might be interested to know that the club in the suite of cards of that name is a clover leaf, meant to simulate the club of mighty Hercules, which had a clover-leafed head to it.